welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt. With me on the show today, Debbie G and Neo Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And a Merry Christmas to everybody. We have a full house today because we've got a couple of extra people joining us. We got Debbie G's spouse, Joe, joining us on the show. Hey there, Joe. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
Good. A nice shot of a Christmas tree back there. And my own lovely wife, Louise, is also joining us for the first time in a long time. She's the one who started the show with me many, many years ago. And Louise, hey, good to have you back.
Hello. Merry Christmas, everybody.
And everybody's in their Christmas duds and looking good. Debbie G's been a little bit under the weather, but she's looking like she's feeling a whole lot better. You look like you are anyway.
I love that. Well, we're getting a slight feedback here. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. I have been not feeling the hottest. And what I told Joe was when I was in the hospital really, really sick for like 4 weeks one time, I used to put my makeup on every day so I could fool everybody. It didn't work, but still, I was trying. I was like, excuse me. Oh, goodness. Sorry, everybody. So I say Mac makes everybody look better. I don't even know what to tell you. You could be on your deathbed and using Mac and be all right.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good to know.
So if anybody's dying, just put your Mac on. Sorry if you're dying. Sorry, that was horrible.
Lately, okay, so
we're gonna call that. That's cold medicine talking.
That's right. Now I have to give credit is due. This episode was basically instigated by Neo because Neo said he wanted to meet Louise at one point, and so we kind of used this date. We're recording this on Christmas Eve as the opportunity. So Neo, here we are. We got you into the place you asked for. You're meeting the place one. Not only are you meeting Louise, you're also meeting Joe. So hey.
You know what? One of the truest things that life has taught me that I guess I didn't believe it as a child was that behind every man is a great woman.
That's too Walt.
Listen to your sound pitch. Walt,
your voice is sounding almost like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Alvin and the Chipmunks. I'll work on that.
She's telling you to man up. She said, man up, stay with your chest. No, but you know what? Behind every man is a great woman. I learned that a while ago, and because I didn't have my mom growing up, so I didn't know how to take that when I first heard it in like high school. And my dad, is such a great man. He's my best friend. But since then, I've learned that to be very, very true. And as I've gotten to know Walt, he impresses me every time we have a conversation. And I appreciate how much on his game he is as far as learning more new mental exercises to improve himself and the people around him. So I was like, I got to meet the woman behind this man. And I've been thinking that ever since we did our first show together. So when I asked him and he was like, yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be that easy. Like I've done this a long time ago. So it is my pleasure to meet you. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And I have to tell you, actually, it's the other way around. If anything, I'm the one who's behind her. I mean, she's like the out front person most of the time in our lives. So, LOA Today is a little bit of an exception to that rule, but yeah, she's the number one person here, no doubt.
All right, folks, down off the pedestal. Down off the pedestal. I'm a human being. We work as a team. We work as a team in our marriage, in the business. It takes the two of us. But the positive thing is we listen and we talk things out and we bounce stuff off each other. And it hasn't happened so much lately, but I'll sort of a yin and yang kind of thing. I do something, he does the other part without us even talking about it. So we fill in for each other without even conversing. But we do find that we have similar thoughts as far as doing something. I'll say, hey, how about we do this and such? Oh, I already already did it, or I already made the call, or I picked it up at the store, or whatever. So we're on the same wavelength a lot of the time, which is nice. But we don't take it for granted that the other one's always going to do that.
Yeah, you can't.
I'm super curious as to when you first learned about law of attraction, like how you learned it from The Secret, your parents taught you, and how you've used it since then.
Oh gosh. Well, I didn't know about the law of attraction at the time, but I can tell you exactly on what street corner I was stopped at in Burlington, Vermont, when I made the decision that I was going to stop watching as much negative TV or movies or books, that I was going to make a conscious effort to find things that made me feel good when I watched them or did them or whatever. It was many, many, many years later. I don't remember how long we had been married, Walt, at least 2 years, 2 or 3 years, when Walt talked to me about The Secret. And
Oh yeah,
I
that
think
was
we're
like 6 or 7 years. Yeah,
into the
because
marriage.
yeah, because The Secret was published in 2006, and I found it in 2007. So actually, it would
Oh,
be
all right.
7
So
or 8.
that much
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
We started talking about it, and I had been focused on a more positive attitude in life, in that I was never clinically depressed, or I was never diagnosed clinically, but I think I was always sort of low grade depressed as a kid, and was tired of it, just really tired of it, and realized that there were things that I could do or read or watch that would elevate my mood. So why not? The struggle was there wasn't that much out there. And my friends weren't positively focused. So trying to find what tidbits. But Walt read The Secret. I'd heard about The Secret and watched, I think, some of her interviews on Oprah, but it didn't really catch for me until Walt and I started talking about it. And you probably remember it more clearly, Walt, than I do. My long-term memory's not that great.
No, you got it
So,
pretty accurate, I'd say. That's pretty much what happened, and it
do you
became a
remember what?
fiction.
Do you remember what led up to my doing the first show with you?
Yeah, I asked you. It was really straightforward.
Okay.
I mean, I originally, as I remember it, I originally wanted to do it with you, me, my brother, and my sister-in-law, and we ended up doing the second episode with them. But I also had figured out how the thing was working, and they weren't ready to do it yet. So you agreed to do the first show with me, and then we did the first 20 minutes and found that nothing had been recorded, and then we started again. So
Yep.
all the fun technology.
We've all been there.
Oh yeah.
Walt, do you remember that spark that first said, "I'm going to make a show"? Like, you remember where you were and what you were thinking about just before that?
I can't tell you that I was thinking we're going to make a show. What I can tell you is I had been thinking for about a 6 to 12 month period, how can I get myself to find the information that I needed to fill in the gaps? Because for me, there were gaps, like for many people who watch The Secret or listen to or read the book. There are gaps that just you couldn't quite put together. It didn't make sense. And so I needed people to talk to, but I didn't know anyone to talk to. So I figured, well, what are the options? How can I do that? And podcasting, I knew had been around for a little bit, but it hadn't really taken on in a huge way. And yet it was popular enough. I figured, well, maybe if I set up a podcast, I can find some experts and say, hey, come on to my podcast. Let's talk about the law of attraction. And then I learned some stuff. And so that's what I did.
That's that moment right there when you're like, it's born. That idea is born.
Yeah.
It was like 2 a.m. the other day. And I love doing these things. You guys know, Joe and Louise, you guys probably don't know. every night from midnight till 2 in the morning, I basically hit record, and I just get real meditative, and I spew whatever comes to me. And a lot of times I end up describing my experience as a cop. A lot of times I'll just go down, like if I'm ever feeling down, or if I need a morale boost, I'll do like Debbie always teaches me, which is to, discover my awesomeness, to say the things about me that are the bomb. And, being a cop in the most dangerous city in America and chasing people down dark alleyways 5 nights a week is one of the most kick-ass things I've ever done. And so that spawns me into some kind of story. And so it just clicked on me. I want to do a show called When I Was a Cop. And then that's it. When I was a cop, this, da, 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 da. When I was a cop, it was like this. And so, yeah, I kind of started. That night I made the Facebook group. That was like 2 or 3 days ago. And the next time when I'm not crazy holiday family, I'm going to start, just doing videos and just freestyling whatever story comes to mind. Like, it's going to be beautiful. I can't wait. But yeah, thank you for that too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I didn't know that you've been planning that. That's cool.
It's that moment when you have that spark. I'm going to do this. Like, yeah, it just, you don't know what it's going to birth, but we're here years later, so much more knowledge, so much more positivity.
I got to jump in. You guys talk about spark that G vibe. It's your gratitude vibration. Spark. But we're all the spark. We're all the spark of the divine. I resonated a lot with all of you, but Louise, what I loved is that you were talking about that low grade depression, that thing that kind of hangs on there until that we start recognizing it and seeing it. And what I love is that you're let's talk a little bit about your background, because what I want people to know that are watching is that not only did you recognize it, but this was sort of your field of study, and it was also what you did for a living. Was it psychotherapy or psychology?
Psychotherapy, yeah.
Psychotherapy, yeah.
Well, back up a little. I got my undergrad degree in psychology, primarily child psych. Didn't identify that I was depressed per se. I just knew I wasn't a happy person, but probably no more or no less than anybody else. Had major family trauma. I guess when I was 21, my mom died. And I did go to see a therapist associated with the school I was going to, and talk to the empty chair. I'm like, no, which is a technique. Just, didn't work for me. And went off, graduated, worked for a while at a job, and then went off and was a ski bum for 5 years in Vermont, and didn't realize till, I think it was the second summer, and maybe it was the first or second summer, why was I there? And it dawned on me, this was the socialization I didn't get in college because I lived at home all but 1 year. So I didn't get that dormitory experience. But this was the partying, the going out dancing, the friendship, the having fun kind of stuff, without the burden of exams and classrooms, which was nice. And then I moved to Northern Vermont for 5 years, but I was one of the guys that was waiting tables, and one of the guys said to me, what are you doing wasting your time doing this? And it resonated, and I decided to go to grad school and looked around for something that would interest me as a therapist. And as you may know, most graduate programs require the GREs, or the graduate record exams, before you can enter. It's like SATs. Well, I'm terrible at those, and I didn't want to have to do it. Very stressful. And I found a graduate program in marriage and family therapy that didn't require GREs, didn't require a final thesis or anything like that. It was mostly experiential. And I said, this sounds perfect to me. So I moved from Northern Vermont to Connecticut to go to school and got my degree and began working as a psychotherapist. And most of my 10 years was working in and around drug and alcohol rehab. I moved into more of doing the family therapy, doing family groups, and then doing women's groups. And that's where I learned about codependency. That's one of the first times I heard the word codependency, and started going to CODA meetings, which is a 12-step program you may be familiar with. And I just found what I was looking for, the spiritual and the psychological and the friendships. It made sense, and that I couldn't change anybody else. I could only change myself. So part of our graduate school program was they didn't require it, but they recommended you be in therapy. And I finally found a therapist whose motto was grow or go. And it was basically change your behavior. And I'm a retired gardener, so it was like pull the weeds and plant the seeds. So identifying what wasn't working. And at CODA meetings, you heard from other people what they were doing that was working for them. And you could tailor it to fit what might work for oneself. And I made leaps and bounds in that. And realized, life could be better. It was on me, though. The responsibility was me. It wasn't, that I needed to change my friends or the people around me. I had to change how I reacted or responded more so to them. And
can I ask you something real quick?
Sure.
If you can remember, what was the best technique you had, learned? Whether it be from someone else learned it and you were like, oh, that might work for me, or from an instructor or a book. Like, what back in that time, what was the best one you learned from there?
Best thing.
Like technique.
Gosh. I don't think it was a technique. It was just a mindset. And knowing that I was responsible, I had to change my behavior. So just listening a lot to what other people were saying worked for them. And getting the feedback. Those CODA meetings, because especially one of them, I went to like 3 a week at least, but one of them, there was a lot of help in the meeting. You can go to some and people just regurgitate their problems and don't move forward, but there was a lot of help, and that spurred me on. It wasn't a competition, but it was like, hey, if he can do that or she can get better, I can too. So it was more that network of people and support that you don't get in the larger population, because most people hadn't identified or didn't even know the word codependency. So I think it was just being in that group and getting that support and the ideas and the feedback when I would make progress. And then
I really love it. I just wanted to jump in really quick because you said so
Sure.
many powerful things. One of the things I heard you say that I love was that you took self-responsibility. And that's huge, because if anybody has ever been in any situation, whether it's codependent or addicted to it, that's all a symptom of the underlying things. But taking self-responsibility to me was huge. The other was that you pull the weeds and you plant the seeds. Identify what's going on, pull the weeds and plant the seeds. And if you all are watching right now, type that into the chat. Pull the weeds, plant the seeds. We're heading into the holidays right now. And the reason I really wanted to emphasize a little bit with this, Louise, is because so many people, they get so downtrodden on the holidays, like it's the end of the world, because we put such a big thing around all of this. So that's why I wanted you to elaborate. And sometimes it's really hard for people to hear that they are the creator and also responsible for how life is going, because we've been so busy, if we've been busy blaming the whole world for our problems. So, Neo, is it safe to consider that what you were asking for was that shift right there? But I think what she said was it was perspective.
You know, I took it all in, and another huge part was feedback. I don't know if I took that right, but being in that setting with a bunch of people who love you and are going through the same things as you, it just does something, especially when they verbalize any type of gratitude for the universe or towards you. It does something to the air, and it's like spiking the punch in the room. And that's another huge thing. I actually wrote that down. That I want to make sure that I'm giving feedback, you know, to the people that I don't normally give it to, because just, you know, it's just life.
Yes.
So starting with right outside of that door, you know, the people that are there, and that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, and the owning your stuff. Oh my goodness, OYS, I call it, own your shit. That in the law of attraction is a dangerous bug, because that means that bad thing that happened to you, you have to look at it and say, what did I do to attract that into my life? That's a huge step in progress that we in this group are going to have a nice time spreading to the world.
It's one of those, oh, shoot, you know, moments. It's like, you know, I did it to myself. Well, and you probably, Joe, you might not have heard. I got sick, in 2018, and right around, I got diagnosed right after Thanksgiving, and my thyroid was all out of whack. And if you don't know, thyroid affects every part of your body. And having to realize I did it to myself. You know, that wasn't something from outside. That was stress related, and that was something I did to myself. But I also, y'all.
Yep. Well, she's having connection issues. I can hear her in the other room.
Walt, you're stealing all her internet juice right now. You're
seriously, right? Well, you know what? We haven't heard from Joe at all. She's trying to get.
She's trying to connect. Yeah.
Well, I love where she was going with this, because it comes down to that accountability and self-accountability. And also the law of appreciation is the law of attraction. And if you don't have the law of appreciation, hang it up. He's going to go help. I'm going to drop Louise down for just a minute here while he goes. And Walt,
I want to hear down. I want to hear Joe's take. Where did you learn the law of attraction, and how long did it take you to start implementing it? And
you know, it was interesting listening to her story, Louise's story, and I was thinking about it, and it's been such an interesting journey this year. You know, this year has been just a marvelous whirlwind of events and emotions and transformations for me. I didn't know anything about the law of attraction up until earlier this year. So I don't think you know much about me, Neil, but a few years ago, I was a pretty heavy drinker and partier, and that was kind of my life and had been for a long time. And I decided to change that. And for a couple of years there, I thought that was good enough. You know, that's all I needed to do was change that in my life, and everything else was going to fall into place. And for a while, it seemed true. It seemed that was good enough. And then I come to realize earlier this year that I was searching for something else. I needed more. And then, you know, I met Debbie, and then I got involved in Taya, and just all of this stuff has started coming together. And Debbie, as you guys know, is just a wealth of information into all of these different areas that she just constantly is introducing me to. And at times it's almost overwhelming, but I also appreciate it. It's just, I kind of have to piece it by piece, and I feel like I'm still a baby, still trying to figure all this stuff out, to be honest with you. So I don't know that I've had that light bulb moment yet. I'm still kind of got one foot in the dark and one in the light and still working it all out. So
Debbie, would you say he had that light moment already? To me,
I'm gonna just what I can tell you is this: for each of us, it comes to this realization of wanting to own your shit, just like you said there, Neo. And the dark and the light, it's an acceptance that we create both, and that both are there for us, and each of us come to our own moment individually. So we all know that a caterpillar goes to become a butterfly, and when it becomes that butterfly, it comes out of the cocoon. And if you go over and you start trying to cut the butterfly out of the cocoon before it's ready to come out of the cocoon, you've now killed the butterfly. And in essence, it looks like Louise is still having problems. I'll go ahead and just pop it back here like this, and bring them right back as soon as they get that fixed. So in essence, what I'm telling you is that I have caught myself several times trying to cut Joe out of his cocoon. I got some scissors. I'm gonna cut that shit right out. And
yeah, I've been slicing myself at some cocoons.
yeah, it's not it's the path of most resistance. The path of least resistance is to practice the art of non-interference. I say this all the time, but Lord help me if I'm not going right into it. Like, oh Lord, here I go again, interfering with some shit that it's like, Jesus, we are created in the womb for 9 months perfectly. We don't need outside help. We don't need anything. This has been going on for centuries. Right now, I want to talk about my DNA thing in a minute about that. But we've been doing this for a long time. But then we come out of the womb, and our parents I did this, and all y'all who were parents did this. I got this from here. Thank you. You did a great job. I'm gonna make this. I made this human. No, I didn't actually make the human. I had sex and made a human. And my body made the human. The universe made the human. The divine creation that resides within me made the human. But yet we want to try and think that we're going to control or make the human do. It just doesn't make sense. To cut somebody out of their cocoon before they're ready to cut them out it harms the relationship. It actually harms the person, because though as badly as I would love for everybody to be able to see that there is more light, you can't. Without your dark, you wouldn't know your spark. So until you learn to love the dark, you may not see your spark. I don't know, but it's an individual process that is, requires. I would love to just download all my stuff into Joe's head, but that's not how this works. He may not need everything I need, right, Louise? You just want to go here. Just don't you see? Go do all this.
I'm laughing because that was our relationship in the beginning, because I was much more positively focused and I would point stuff out to Walt, even as simple as when he would go for his daily walks, look around, notice stuff. It was
Totally.
years. And then he finally was like, I'm doing it. It makes a difference. It's like, or somebody else, somebody on the show said something that maybe I had said years before, but until he's ready to hear it, or I'm ready to hear it, or Joe or anyone is ready to hear it, all you can do is offer.
Yeah, but not getting all. I bet. Did you find yourself like getting in it, like in it, like so invested in it, and then my time and energy gets invested in something that isn't even mine to invest in. Somebody else's healing work is not mine to go and step in and invest my own energy. That's an old codependent. We all know that. Let's call it what it is. That's an old codependent. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
no,
something
please.
that my training as a therapist taught me was I can't want the recovery more than the other person does. And what I want for them may not be what they want for them. And I have to back out and let it go. All I can do is offer the information, the support, whatever it might be, but I can't make them get well if they don't want it.
You know what would be a good, I think is a good sign of that, because I look for signs and things and try to reverse diagnose and see how things work. It's just like, you're not trying to convince them to switch coffees. You're not trying to convince them to switch football teams, which would be even harder. You're trying to get them to switch the biggest thing that a person has in their life, which, their belief, what they hold on to. And so that's probably a good sign that you should just leave that one alone.
Well, I love that. I want to also commend though. Look, Joe. Let's look at all the things you are doing that are. You look at the things that you are doing. You're taking these steps, and so I want to also talk about comparison versus compersion. Comparison is when we're comparing ourselves to another person to continue to enforce the story that we're telling ourselves that we're not good enough. Versus compersion, which is to be in joy and elation for others' accomplishments and achievements and celebrate them. So there's a big difference between the two. And I think that when we're going through this, sometimes that comparison can creep its ugly little reary head up, which is just part of our ego. My ego is ridiculous sometimes. Geez, I go, would you stop already? Jesus, man. Lord help me. Oh, Lord.
But
Real
that's
quick,
part of the fun.
Matt,
That's the fun of being alive.
the other night I was trying my heart. I said, I'm going to sit here, and out of all my mental exercises, I'm just going to wait and see what comes and see how long I can hold it. That was my whole point. See how long I can hold this stillness. And it just got to the point where I was like, dang, like, stop. And like, why bring that? Why now? Like, no. And it was just so ridiculous, the things that were popping up. And it was like that book, The Untethered Soul, is like children clamoring for your attention. And you literally can either give it to them or you don't. But Debbie, real quick, the Calm app. I'm doing a meditation, 30 days of meditation. I'm on day 23 or day 22. He was talking about empathy versus compassion. And he said, think of someone that brings pain to your mind, someone that's going through something. I'm like, I don't want to meditate about this today. I want to skip to the next one or go back. I said, you know what? Let me take it. And so I was thinking about a particular person, one of my cousins, who's always got this cloud over him. And he said, empathy, you're feeling what they're feeling and kind of manifesting that into your life. Don't want to do that. So he says, compassion, he said, think these words. He said, may he be well. He said, just keep saying it over and over and over again as you think about this person and see what you feel. And I kept doing it, and it was amazing. May he be well is totally different from sitting in someone else's funk. It does something else. But what really helped me was I switched it. I kind of still didn't like it with him. And I switched it to the other person in my life that brings most of the drama to me. The only drama in my life is my son. Missing school and grades and stuff. And so I just, as I'm thinking, it's hitting me. Oh, he missed school. Oh, his grades. He only got 3 classes. I had 8, and it was easy for me. I'm going through all this stuff. And because he's only got 3 classes a day. Come on, man. And so as I'm thinking these things, I'm like, may he be well. May he be well. May he be well. And it totally revamped everything. Because in the meditation, he gives you a couple minutes to do it. Right. And then he flipped it. May I be well. He used it for body pain. May I be well. May it be well. And what you're putting out is a completely different side of the spectrum of what you would normally be putting out when feeling that empathy for that person. So please, you guys, use that. Use it today. Try it. May he be well. May she be well. May I be well. May it be well.
And I love that. I love that, Neo, but I really want to unpack empathy a little bit here, because my understanding of empathy is actually a little bit different. Sympathy is feeling sorry for other people and getting up into their crap and fully being sympathetic. Empathy to me is the ability to have understanding, to seek the understanding of what another human's going through. It's not to get in their shit with them. It's seriously to just have a deeper a willingness to know what's real for another person, to not call it into your life, but to seek to understand them. Because if I'm seeking to understand, I can hold space and love for them without trying to step in and change them. You see, I'm curious what Walt, Louise, and Joe think about empathy versus compassion. Though I do agree with you, because compassion is also holding that space, but I feel like they have to work together in order to achieve that goal of actually for someone to feel loved. We're all here to be loved. We're all here to walk each other home, as Ram Dass said. So if that's so true, then don't empathy and compassion work together?
Well,
And maybe is it our understanding of empathy that might be what we need to see?
I could have it wrong. I thought being an empath meant you could like feel what other people were feeling. So that's where I took
Okay,
it.
I just got to get all up in this now. Okay, so empath. Everybody's walking around going, "I'm an empath." Oh, beautiful. So I'm a trauma baby that's learned to detect when shit's going awry in that room, and I know, and it comes up in my body. You understand? An empath is another codependent trauma baby. Suck your thumb term. I'm sorry. Be an empath out there, people. Whatever.
Don't be that, y'all.
But empathy is the ability to be understanding, to be able to look at somebody else and be willing to see their perspective and not tell them they're wrong, bad, right, wrong, stupid. And I am guilty of doing the bad, right, wrong, stupid thing all the time because my ego, she's a bitch sometimes. True. Sorry. It's true. Y'all,
Oh,
not sorry.
I myself.
So
me,
empathy
I
is that,
really
yeah. Yes.
something popped up for me, and I'm glad you brought this up this summer. Sitting outside with one of my neighbors, and we live in a complex, and one of the other neighbors walked by, and she walks very, very erect, like a model would. And my initial reaction was, oh, haughty. She thinks really well of herself and really quick to judge. And then I'm like, wait a minute. That may be something she was forced to do or did to gain approval or acceptance or whatever. You never know what is underneath. And who was it that recommended Ted Lasso to us?
That was
The show.
Cindy Chavez.
Okay. Cindy recommended this TV show to us. And if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, I highly recommend it.
You have to get through the
Stick with
first
it
couple
more.
episodes. They're a little painful.
Yeah.
But once you get past them, they're great.
And you're scratching your head like, what? But it gets better. But one of Ted's skills. Oh, hi there. One of Ted's skills.
I said he would
is
make a guest
looking
appearance
beyond.
today.
He did, yes.
Say hi.
Hi.
Ew,
Merry
say
Christmas.
Hello, hello, Mark.
Look.
Is that an
What you
early
got?
Christmas present?
Bulldozer, dump
Bulldozer.
truck, and an excavator.
I didn't know what an excavator was.
That's
Now
awesome.
he taught me.
Yeah.
And there he goes. I'm sorry. Go
There
ahead.
you go.
No.
That's okay. That's okay. But one of Ted's abilities is to realize that there's something underneath that's triggering people to behave the way they are in obnoxious ways or mean-spirited or hurtful, whatever it might be. And that what their issue is does come out in the show. And I think that kind of helped me to reinforce, and maybe that's my goal for this next year, is to, even as a therapist, you think, oh, that would be a snap. But no, it's not. When you're sitting in my office, or when I was a therapist, I could read you pretty quickly and have some idea of what was going on that you weren't talking about. But in the larger scheme of things, I can be quick to judge. And it's like, no, stop it. That because somebody is so negatively focused or carries themselves in a certain way, you don't know what went before that has resulted in that. And
Beautiful
back off.
explanation of empathy. Gorgeous explanation of empathy. You don't know. And that is such a beautiful story right there. How that you saw somebody and then started thinking about what may have went on to have this happen. It's actually something that Louise Hayes talked a lot about. She went through this whole thing where she was only looking and seeing people as an infant, imagining they are just this pure and perfect being brought into this earth. So what you're talking about is brilliant, because that really let's examine how that we are looking at them, because we're all judging somebody based upon the filter of our own experiences. We don't know what's went on for other people, and that's why empathy is important. To be an empath, though, to be very clear, do you understand that that's our body had been trained to we walked into a room when we were 3 or 4, we saw there was danger, we learned to detect danger. We learned to get really good with it. People can call it whatever that they want, but the fact of the matter is that's where some of those behavior patterns began.
Mhm.
So there's a big difference, though, between the two. And I love the compassion that you can show somebody, because that very person that we walk in and judge, and Louise, I love this, because if you're able to offer them friendship or a kind word in that moment, that's what touches their heart. That's what they see. That's what they feel. So Joe was saying before, when you were off having getting set back up,
Difficulties.
that yeah, he was saying that he quit drinking a couple years ago, and that he's still like in between that dark and that light, not sure if he's seen that spark yet. And I'm curious about what both of you have to elaborate on. And Joe, also hearing from you to see where you're sitting right now with how you're feeling about the things that we've been discussing too.
Do you want to go
But
first, Joe?
what I can tell you is, in those 10 years that I was a therapist, law of attraction and positivity were not conscious parts of what I did. I got out of the business I got out of grad school. Just, I think, as that was starting to turn, the positive psychology was starting to show itself. And what I would offer Joe is part of, I think, any recovery from anything is at least a balance of the dark and the light. So, if I'm having a struggle, well, what's good, you know? And Walt, you may have shared this on the show, so if I'm repeating myself, when we first started doing this, we started playing games, and it was positivity games. And a lot of it was, okay, we called it the ABC game. You're A, I'm B, you're C, I'm D. We go through the alphabet. And words, positive words. So what's a positive word that begins with A? What's a positive word that begins with B? Or at night before going to bed, share 3 positives with each other that happened during that day. And Joe, I don't know what your recovery consists of, and I don't need to, but I know when I worked in drug and alcohol recovery, they talked about flexing the muscle, getting used to picking up the phone to call your sponsor, not just when, thinking, oh, I'll just call when I'm in trouble. No, because you haven't flexed the muscle, you haven't strengthened it. It doesn't happen. You got to do it on a regular basis. So the positivity stuff, doing it on a regular daily basis of, what are 3 good things that happened today? Or what are 3 positive things I want to have happen today? At least 3. And then you can expand that. Or even in recovery, what are 3 things I like about myself? And it can be my pinky toe on my right foot, or it can be something internal. But finding 3 positives that you can say out loud or write or just acknowledge to begin to shift the mind and the brain chemistry.
Yeah, I definitely second that. In fact, I think what we're really talking about here are daily practices, which somebody, I'm not sure, Debbie, somebody punched into the chat here, but
I'm
those daily
trying to. I forgot the word positive.
well, that's all right. Hey, you got the essence in there. That's really the main thing. So, as far as I'm concerned, kudos. But the dailiness of it, doing it every
Yeah.
single day. I mean, Neil, you were talking earlier about how you're on day 23 of this practice you're working on, and it's the continuous everyday application of it that makes the biggest difference. I remember when I first started doing mirror work, which is where you look into a mirror and basically say these things that Louise was referring to. You say, I'm looking into your own eyes. I love you. That first day was like, oh, I love you. Ugh. But you do it often enough. You do it every single day. And after a while, it's, I love you. It feels a whole lot different because you're doing it every day. It's the everyday aspect of it that builds you up. And that's what the beauty is of all of these practices. Debbie, you raised the question earlier about empathy versus empath. I have to admit, I think about it a little bit differently, which is one of the cool things about doing a show like this. Everybody has a little bit different definitions of things. I like your definitions. I think they're good. For myself, an empath is just somebody who feels other people's stuff. And that can go any different way. I mean, there are some people who, like you say, are empaths in that, oh, I got to dive into everybody's horrible stuff and I'm going to bring myself down in the process. And we're going to have this whole angry fest going on and so forth. That's one way to be an empath. Another way to be an empath is to feel somebody else's stuff and say, you know what, I'm going to turn that around. I feel that person's in a really bad space. So I'm going to put myself into a good space and see if I can send that back to them and see what they get. And maybe they'll get it. Maybe they won't. But hey, what's the worst thing that happens? They don't get it. Yeah, so what?
That's going to take. That takes a lot of practice.
It does.
I encourage everybody to get to practice.
Oh yeah.
That takes a lot because say it's your family member, you love them, you care about them. As soon as you start to picture that situation they're in, you kind of do drop in frequency, because you love them. But you got to get the faster you can snap out of that, the better, and do like.
And there's beauty too, because when you are empathic and you feel their stuff and you flip it around, the empathy works both directions. Just the fact that you're feeling it doesn't mean that they aren't also experiencing something. So when you feel whatever their pain is that they're going on, you flip it over into something positive and you send it back, they feel that too. It works both ways. So we got to remember that just because you're an empath doesn't mean it's all what you're receiving. It's also what you're putting out. It's both.
Yeah. I think empathy is like you said, Walt, it's the feeling somebody else's emotions, and compassion is your desire to help with those emotions.
Okay.
I think to me, that's the difference.
That's a good difference. Yeah. I think the main thing is making sure you know.
I'm still on the empathy is seeking a deeper understanding. But it's also Marshall Rosenberg's teachings of nonviolent communication that I'm taking this from, to be clear. That empathy is that understanding, and I can pull out the book and get a little bit clearer. But really, I think what it really is, what Neo said was on point from the book, The Untethered Soul. Don't get stuck in a loop-de-loop of hell because the other person brings you. Look, now we're going to go into trauma bonding because that's all that is. You got somebody who's talking to you. Trauma bonding is what happens when you're seeking somebody else. Like I get somebody who calls me up and they're going through a horrible experience, but rather than me doing what Walt's saying and give them a positive back, or what Neo's saying, I wish them well, or I see them as well, I get into their stuff with them in a trauma bonded situation. Okay. And trauma bonding is when you have something. I've been through this experience and I've got a ton, and I'm going through this. Oh, we both have been through this together, and you're supporting each other in the trauma versus in the doing what Walt or Neo is saying, and that is saying to reverse it. So empath versus empathy they're just words. What is your intention behind the word? What is it that you're trying to achieve, and what is it that you want for yourself? Fuck the word. Let's get down to what do you want for your outcome? What do you want? What do you want to be for the people that are there with you for this outcome? What do you want in your own life? So I'm not going to get hung up on anything, especially a word, because word is just a word. but rather the intention. And Neo, that's where you're right about that. Walt, you're right about that. Joe, you're right about that. Louise is right about that, and I'm right about that, because everybody's right in their own perspective. How about that one?
Absolutely.
Boink,
Absolutely correct.
boink.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's
You
absolutely
know
true.
what? And to top that off, it doesn't matter how right you are if you're not using it.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
right?
Not a damn stinking bit, does it? Not a
And that's accountability. That's accountability, man. You got to wake up in the
dude.
morning.
Like,
That's why I call them
who
mental exercises, because
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
me, that's what it is. You're flexing that brain. You're changing it as a muscle into a different kind of muscle.
Yeah.
And you got to do them every day. You know, how much do you want it? You get out of things what you put into it, you know?
This is where I really like
Right.
the Abraham Hicks concept,
And it
because what
gets
they're
easier.
the ones they're the ones who promote the idea that all this is vibrational, that everything that happens in our lives, in the perspective of source energy, in God's perspective, however you want to look at it, all of it is vibrational, and then the universe is vibrational, and all of our exchanges are vibrational. So when we think about it that way, now it doesn't really matter what the word labels are. Now the question is just, where's your vibration at? Is it a high vibration or is it a low vibration? Is it higher than it was before? Is it lower than it was before? And that's it. And everything else is just labeling. It also makes for great shows, but that's basically it right there.
And the tools are basically ways to increase the vibration, laughing and being silly, singing, dancing, any of those things. I was telling Walt this summer, we didn't get out and ride bikes very often, but whenever I get on my bike, I feel about 12 years old. And I love it because, that's when I rode my bike the most, when I was about 12. So if I'm going to feel 12 years old, by all means, I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
Absolutely.
Just don't try any of those tricks you tried at 12.
Okay.
Luckily, I was a cook.
All right. I'm loving where you just took this, Louise. Play.
Yeah.
All right. Here it is. So Karen Palmer, who I started Spirituality Gone Wild with many, many moons ago, she was her birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Karen.
Happy birthday.
But I'm going to read this to you all because this is Karen. She had me in stitches. She's all about, if you get into it with somebody, you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. Let me read. So
I love it. I love it.
She's Miss Kindness, man. We're going to have her on the show. You guys, we got to get Karen on. So it says this. She sends this to me. I welcome all things with wonder and curiosity. I let everything be and enjoy. I choose to be truly helpful and listen to my inner guidance always. I am gentleness, acceptance, and ease no matter what. When I find myself upset or disturbed, I remember the truth and I do the hokey pokey and I turn myself around and love, because that's what it's all about. I make a joke about it because it's silly. I have never been abandoned. I have never been rejected. And I am loved and cherished beyond words. I am too wonderful for words, and so is everything and everyone. We are all the same inside. I am the only one who needs to believe this, and so I choose again. I fall back into grace, knowing that I just that I just say, "Oops, I projected again." Got out of my heart, went into my mind. Oh baby, baby, I created a mess. And I gently laugh, do the hokey pokey, and turn myself around, because that's what love is all about.
That's great.
Love it.
Karen, I love you.
I like that.
Karen Palmer, Miss Kindness.
She wasn't even here and
Do
she
the
was here.
Well, that's it.
That's
It's being gentle with oneself. And I think it was when I was in therapy myself, finding a new definition for the word mistake. If you think of it from a Hollywood movie perspective, it's a miss over again. It's not, the world doesn't end. You just do it again, do it over and do it differently. So I'm not a mistake. If I made a mistake, it's not like it was when I was a kid. You're wrong, you're bad, whatever. It's just, I made a mistake. I'll try again. And that was responsibility, taking responsibility. For so many people, young people, it's like, oh my God, that's well, think that the sky's going to fall on. Negativity goes with it. Other than, hey, I really messed up. I did it early. I would like to make amends, but different. Realize what I did, and I'm going to try and do it differently. And comes at a whoever you're talking to, maybe you ended or whatever. That I did is.
Okay. Louise is having a little trouble there. She's actually really far away from the Wi-Fi modem, so that's what the connection's causing the problem with right now.
Walt is stealing all the bandwidth.
Stealing all the bandwidth. Well, so do the hokey pokey. But what I heard Louise saying was, take it easy with yourself. And I think she also said that to look at the word mistake as a mistake.
Right.
A mistake.
I like
do
that.
it again. Do it. And she said, do it again and do it differently. Now, there's the key right there. She said the most important thing that's been said this entire show. You had the choice to do it differently. How's it working for you? If you did a mistake, what can you do differently next time around? If you're doing the same thing over and over, it's insanity. So stop that. So I love what she had to say, and she brought it. And I love that hokey pokey, man. So I know we're getting ready to end. And Joe, do you have, because you haven't said a whole lot because I talk a lot. So, and I love that. My mouth makes me funny.
There's nothing new here, by the way. You talk a lot even when Joe isn't here.
All the time. I just do. Yeah.
I'm totally fine with it. I'm the quiet one anyway. So this was perfect for me. I got to talk for a few minutes and say hi to you guys live on the internet. So,
which is great. We love that.
It's always cool.
Yeah.
I think one of the words that keeps coming up in my mind, and it's because Debbie and I talk about it a lot, and I think it's a really important word, and it is curiosity. And I think as long as we're always curious about, we talked about empathy and compassion and all of that stuff, but I think a key word in all of that is being curious. What's real for the other person? What's real for you? What's real for everybody, So always be curious. We talked about little babies and how they don't do anything but just, come out of the womb and they're perfect, And then they're curious. That's all they are, is they're little sponges and they're just curious. Never stop being curious,
I love it.
Neo, and I wanted to share this with you because I don't think you've ever seen it, but I've been wearing this for 5 months too, brother.
Nice. The Superman Club. Yeah. I think this was a Christmas gift for my daughter last year. I always have some kind of Superman chain, and she got this one. I love it.
Debbie bought it for me for my birthday in July. So,
all right.
I always call you Superman when I'm in the audience, just saying stuff, and that's why. So
that's why I wear it. That's it. I just want that response. Hey, Superman. I just need that energy from everybody.
Thanks for having me on today, guys. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, brother.
I want to add one more thing too, and it's along the same lines as the idea of the mistake. Something that Cindy Chavez and I once talked about, which is the definition of the word sin. Sin has a lot of negative baggage that gets attached to it through the way it gets used in organized religion. But you look at the original definition, you go back to the etymology, as they call it, when you go back to the origins of the word sin apparently just means nothing more than to miss the mark. And that's all it is. There is nothing else there. There's no morality attached to it. There is no you should have, you shouldn't have. There's none of that. It's just you missed the mark. You aimed at the target and you didn't hit the bullseye. So what do you do when you don't hit the bullseye? You re-aim. You start all over. You just do it again. There is no shame. There's no blame. There's none of that. That's all nonsense. So just a little thought for you guys about what the word sin really means, because it isn't what it's usually thought to have meant. And with that thought in mind, I want to say to everybody, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever it is that you celebrate, or even if you don't celebrate anything at all, a happy that too, whatever it is that you call it that you do. Thank you very much to all of our podcast listeners. Thank you for listening to us throughout the years. We're looking forward to continue doing it next year. In fact, we're going to be doing the New Year's Eve special a week from today. So you want to join us from that. And with that in mind, we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.